Hi, I'm Karen, and this is the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. This space is all about breaking the stigma of mental health, where we'll share personal stories, helpful online resources, and meaningful insights, all with one goal in mind: to remind you that you are not alone in your mental health journey. Hello, hopefuls! I hope everyone is doing well, and I want to welcome you back to Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. And today we have a very special episode where we're going to be talking about mainly depression, but anxiety might be a part of this as well, and addiction. And what does that mean for those who are dealing with both? We actually have a guest who is going to be a part of this conversation because they are going to be talking about their addiction to drugs, legal drugs, and I think legal, and what they went through with respect to their addiction. And then we're going to be talking about my story, which is talking about shopping addiction, which addiction is addiction, and it's just mainly your drug of choice, if you will. For me, it was shopping. For this other person, it was a drug. And this person wants to remain anonymous because they are a bit afraid that their addiction, which they are not now, they are actually sober and have been for a while, but they are afraid that it could affect their job or people they know. So we don't want to get in the way of that by sharing their name or even having them on camera. So today we're going to be doing just an audio recording. Welcome to today's episode. This is going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to this because this is something that I think a lot of people deal with respect to depression. What actually gave me this idea was my problem with shopping. I saw another podcast here recently that was talking with somebody about drinking, which can be another addiction, of course. And that person was wanting to know if they were addicted to alcohol or basically an alcoholic. And the host of the podcast was going through some questions with respect to what this person does on a daily basis with alcohol. And it came down to it that the person was addicted to it. There was some childhood trauma that she hadn't gotten through, which was the reason for her addiction, because she kept talking about these voices and things were so loud, and she kept trying to push these voices down. In reality, she needs to listen to them to move on and to become not addicted to alcohol. That was according to his recommendation. So the podcast person that was hosting, that was his recommendation. And so that gave me an idea for this podcast because I wanted to talk a little bit more about the different types of addictions, because we all know about alcohol and drugs and shopping. So let's get started. Mainly, we're going to talk about just depression, but anxiety can get in there too. What is depression? We've talked about this before, but let's just do a quick recap. So it's a mental health disorder characterized by sad, irritable, or empty mood that significantly impacts a person's ability to function in everyday life. This common mood disorder affects how you feel, think, and act. And risk factors about depression can be biological, genetic, environment, psychological, and other major life changes, stress, and trauma, which for me, that's very true. I had major trauma within my career that has led to my depression and anxiety. There's different types to depression, and what this article here that I'm reading is they break it down to various types of depression. And so mine is major depressive disorder. And that's a mental health disorder characterized by a loss of interest in almost all activities previously enjoyed, depressed mood, change in sleep patterns, change in appetite, feeling of guilt, low energy, and psychomotor agitation, and nearly every day. And I can tell you for a fact with me, that is all very true. I do and have lost interest in things that I once found joy in. My change in appetite is I eat anything and everything, and I'm really trying to curb that just because I was talking with my counselor recently and I was telling her that I'm too young to feel this old because I'm in my 50s now, and there are times where walking up the stairs and even walking out to the mailbox which is really not that far, can be difficult. And that's because of the inactivity that I've done. I'm trying to change that. And if you caught the most recent video that I did, I actually just started going to a Pilates class, which I really do enjoy. I've only been once, which was this past Tuesday, and I plan on going again on Tuesday. And so far, so good. The main goal is to get me out of the house, of course, but then the secondary goal is to get some type of exercise. And since I've had 3 surgeries on my ankle, I needed something that was low impact on my body but made a difference. I thought Pilates would be a great start, and I already tell a difference, which is really awesome. I've only had one class, one main class. I did do a free class a couple weeks ago, but my ankles tend to be very weak, and they still are very weak, but I can tell the difference when I'm walking up the stairs, how they are just not as uncomfortable as they used to be. So this is really great. I'm hoping that at some point I can get back to walking a little bit more. And I did take my dog on a walk yesterday, which was great. One of the things that I'm going through with my counselor is she does a form of cognitive behavioral therapy, which if you remember back to the episode that I did last time, 2 weeks ago, we talked specifically about the type of counseling she provides. And basically what she does is a type of exposure therapy. And that's basically what cognitive behavioral therapy is in a way. So part of my homework, if you will, is to get out of the house and find things that cause anxiety and get through that anxiety. And if you remember, again, a few episodes ago, we did an episode about trauma, type of trauma response, and I think it's called the anxiety loop, where you start out normal, your anxiety is at a reasonable level, you see a threat, you conquer that threat, and you come back to a reasonable anxiety level. And with anxiety, though, if you see that threat and you don't conquer it and you avoid it, like I do, which I didn't know that until recently, but if you avoid it, then you don't come back, you don't close that loop. And so your anxiety continues to increase and increase. And for me, my anxiety has increased to the point where I don't get out. I've been diagnosed with agoraphobia. And so it's about being exposed to things that cause the anxiety. So anyway, I digress. But with that said, the major depressive disorder is trying to get me back into things that I once loved, which was being active. And being active is something that I hold dear. I've been active most of my life up until the last few years, and getting out of the house and doing Pilates is exactly what I need. So far so good. My next class is on Tuesday morning. I'm trying to do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I bought a 3-month membership to go twice a week. So I'm going on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it makes a difference like I'm expecting. And I did talk to a couple ladies at the end. It's mostly women. My whole class was women. The class before me had, or the first class I had, the class before me had one man, but it's mostly women. But anyway, the 2 ladies I talked with, one said that she's been going for a while now, and she said she can certainly tell a difference. She's like, just keep at it and you'll really enjoy it. And she started talking to me about the instructors and how some are difficult, more so than others, and who to get if I don't want a difficult workout, but still get a good workout in, and so on. So it was really great. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed meeting new people, which that is so me. Before all of this started, I loved going to conferences because I really enjoyed networking and meeting people and finding those connections and starting those relationships with people. And I just don't do that anymore. And I'm not saying I'm going to go to any conference anytime soon, but I do really enjoy meeting people and getting to know different people. And so maybe that is another goal for me down the line as I go through this class, to maybe get out a little bit more and do other things. But anyway, I digressed in a very big way. Continuing on with the different types of depression here. The next one on this list is persistent depressive disorder. This disorder, also referred to as dysthymia, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, is considered the most chronic form of depression. It occurs when individuals experience depression symptoms almost every day for 2 or more years. Compared to MDD, individuals with PDD can experience similar but less severe symptoms. The next one is seasonal affective disorder, depression that occurs during the winter months and returns each year. This type of depression usually subsides when there is more natural light during the spring and summer. And here, I am actually the opposite of that. I absolutely love cloudy days. Love them. I would not have a problem living in places in like the Pac Northwest where it's quite cloudy. And I honestly, when I lived in Colorado, and a lot of people think Colorado is really snowy, and it's not. At least not down on the plains. Now, if you get up into the mountains, yes, of course. But in Denver, it just really wasn't as snowy. And so it would snow, but then within a couple of days it would melt. And it was quite often sunny. And because of that, that gave me anxiety. Sunny days gives me a lot of anxiety. And also, too, when I was living in the Midwest, because now I'm on the East Coast, but when I was living in the Midwest, the summers get really hot, and they tend to get really hot, obviously, during July and even in parts of August, early August. And I just remember one time years ago where it seemed like forever hot. It was like 3 or 4 weeks. It was really long, and it just was not ending. And I just remember how anxious I felt. And I remember looking at the weather forecast to see what it was going to be like, and finally seeing that break in the heat just caused me a good sense of relief, because you start moving in towards like the fall. Eventually the temperatures get slightly cooler, and I just remember how much of a relief that was. And so I think I do have maybe a seasonal affective disorder, but in a very opposite way with respect to sunny days versus cloudy days. I just love cloudy days. But anyway, postpartum depression occurs when a woman experiences major depression after the child delivery. It can be difficult for a mother to care for her baby or for herself. Depression with psychotic features, a combination of severe depression, a form of psychosis which includes having delusions and hallucinations. What are the symptoms of depression? And we've talked about that too, but let's just do a quick recap. So, persistently depressed mood, feeling empty, hopeless, and sad. Noticeably decreased pleasure or interest in all or almost all activities, which, yes, that is so me. Significant changes in weight and appetite, sleep disturbances, insomnia or hypersomnia, psychomotor agitation, restlessness or foot tapping and pacing, loss of energy and fatigue, feelings of worthlessness and inappropriate and excessive guilt, indecisiveness or diminished ability to think or concentrate, which, oh my gosh, yes, that is so me. My concentration as it is not really great just because of my disability of being dyslexic. But then when you factor in depression and you factor in menopause, there are days where it's very hard for me to concentrate, especially towards the end of the week, which I know they're basically wiped out from the week, but I just seem like Fridays for me are just really hard to focus. But anyway, that is depression. Our person that we're going to interview. And again, this person wants to remain anonymous, and we're also going to distort their voice so you can't understand who they are. We want to talk to them about their addiction and what it is that they were addicted to, and just their story in general. So let's get started. So tell me about your depression and your history of depression.
Okay. Yeah, I will. My depression has been most of my life, and I started real young with depression. I don't really know right now as to why it started really young, but I did have issues with my parents. I am assuming that was part of the depression. It's been very much a roller coaster since then. When I was younger and in high school, I was admitted to 2 weeks to a mental health facility. I spent my time there trying to get better, and I did, and I was better for a long time. I did eventually get married, and I had a wonderful relationship with my husband, but it did not last. And so I went through another bout of depression during that and started to become addicted to alcohol and was able to pull myself out of that. Then some really traumatic things occurred, and I don't want to get into the detail, just to let you know that there's some traumatic things that occurred. Several years ago, It really threw me into depression and anxiety and other things. At the time, I don't know if I could say I was depressed, but when the trauma happened, it really just put me in depression and anxiety. And because of that, I started finding ways to get high. And I would take things like allergy medicine, take a lot to get high off of that. And then after doing some research, I found what is called Kratom. It's a natural based, leaf based, legal drug that tends to mirror opiates or pain medicine. And I know from experience with pain meds, as I've had a surgery, that it's really easy to not necessarily take the meds as prescribed and take more than is recommended. I didn't have any pain meds, and I was trying to find something other than allergy meds, and I just happened to find Kratom and went to a smoke shop. Back then, 2017, maybe something like that, maybe even 16. A friend and I went to a smoke shop to buy some, not knowing much about it. We both had some with alcohol, which I found out later is a no-no, but we had some, and we could feel the effects of it. Then I started learning more about it and was able to find some online retailers, and I started ordering it, just like little packages. From what I understand back then, I don't know what it's like now because I'm sober now, but from back then, the smoke shop quality wasn't very good. You wanted to go to a seller online where they sold just Kratom or maybe other things. I'm not 100% sure, but they knew a lot about Kratom, and so I started finding online resources, and I found a couple of places, and I would alternate between the two of them. It was the red leaf or the red vein. That was the kind that can get you high and very much like an opiate. And it did. I've also heard, and I've never done any type of hard drugs, but I've heard it's very much a high like heroin. And some people even use it to get off of heroin because it seems to be a more natural substance. But not ever having done heroin, I can't tell you if it feels like that or not. It very much would get me high. And the more I did it, the more I increased my dosage. I would spend a lot of time in bed because, number one, I was depressed, but also I just would get high and lay there and enjoy the high. And it was really great. I ended up making my whole life about this drug, and my whole life was circled around this drug. I determined how early I needed to go to bed so I could enjoy the high, or how much I had to last me through the next time I got some delivered. Trying to spread it out, or maybe having to go to a local shop to get more before I had what I wanted to be delivered. And it just really started to rule my life and everything in it, and there are hangovers associated with it. I felt the next day really tired, not necessarily hungover like with alcohol, but just really tired, and so I would sleep the entire day away. It was really awful. I say it was awful. It was really great at the time because I was getting high on, say, a Friday night, and then I would spend the entire weekend in bed doing more sometimes Saturday night or Sunday. I don't know if it really affected my work, but I would do it every day. I was originally doing it just on the weekends, and then I started doing it every day. Things with my trauma got even worse, and I started doing it every day, which of course also increased the amount. My whole life circled around this drug. I was a part of Facebook groups with it. All those have been discontinued. Kratom now has a not-so-great reputation. There was an article or something in one of my Facebook groups where somebody stated that their son or daughter had a terrible reaction to Kratom, and they ended up having a seizure, and that seizures were becoming more popular with the drug. I don't know if that scared me into not wanting to do more, but I just decided one day during the summer that I just wasn't going to do it anymore. I had some left. I went through my last package and was counting down the days until I was going to end that package. Finally, it came to it that this time was going to be my last time. I did go into withdrawal, and I planned it to where I'd have a weekend off so I could get through the withdrawals without having to worry about work. I ended up trying to get sober by myself, which I hear now is dangerous and could have led to seizures and even heart issues. I was really sweaty and very, very anxious. I was just restless and didn't sleep all that well. Now I'm several years sober. I think it's like 4 or 5 years. Anyway, I've been sober for a few years now. Don't get me wrong, I still want to do it. Here I am, several years later, wanting to do this drug, and I try my hardest not to. I think it helps that I'm not ordering it because I don't have any in the house anymore. If I did, I think I would do that. And that's really the key for me, just to maintain sobriety and not have it in the house. I'll tell you what, it tastes absolutely disgusting. And so you have to find a way to get it down. The first time my friend and I did it, we just took it plain. It actually has a name when you just take it without anything. I could not do that anymore. I started putting it in yogurt, and that almost made me barf because the consistency and the taste, there was not enough taste in the yogurt to overcome the taste of the kratom. It was really gross. So then I switched to milk, which actually really helped. I would get a glass of milk and put in 3 or 4 tablespoons, which is a lot. And then I would just basically drink the whole thing and go into my high and lay down in bed and just enjoy the high for hours on end. Even talking about it now makes me want to go do something. I just obviously cannot do that. I've been sober for a few years now. That's my story. I was addicted to kratom. I don't want anyone to take this as me telling you what to do, but don't get addicted to kratom. It is really hard to come down off of. It's not cheap, probably not as cheap as things like heroin. So that's my story, and thank you for having me on here today. I really appreciate you allowing me to talk about this, as I know that kratom is starting to get popular, and it's good to touch on this. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Absolutely. I am so thrilled that you were able to be here and tell us your story. I'm glad that you are now sober and that you're able to move on from this. It sounds to me like it was very much an addiction, starting out with a little bit and then increasing the amount over time. And I'm really thankful that you are now sober. And thank you for joining us today. That was really awesome for you to want to tell your story. We're going to read this article here, and we still have our person that provided their story so we can ask some further questions as we go through this article. So we're going to talk about kratom a little bit and why it's raising concerns. This is an article here from the American Psychiatric Association, and it says kratom and why is it raising concerns. So kratom has been a top news topic due to growing concerns about the potential for harm. It is relatively new, and so many people, including some mental health professionals, may not be familiar with it or the risks patients may incur when they use it. The APA recently conducted a survey that found that only 19% of the U.S. adults were familiar with the substance. In 2023, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health estimates 1.6 million annual users. This post provides a brief overview of kratom, current concerns, current legal status, and sources of additional information. So that's actually why I wanted to talk about this today and bring somebody on to talk about their addiction. But it is something that's pretty unknown among people. It can have signs of being addicted to an opiate or even something like heroin. And so it's great that we are able to talk about it. Recently, I think it was a YouTube video where there was a kid that was rather young, because I guess in some states you have to be a certain age to buy it. And I guess now gas stations are selling it in a liquid form. I think it's a fake chemically derived type of kratom, meaning it's not natural. And there was a kid that was young, I don't know how old, was wanting to purchase this drink. And it looked like one of those 5-hour energy drinks. And he was wanting somebody to buy that for him and was asking people outside the convenience store. And everybody kept saying no. And gosh, I cannot remember what that story was about or who. I know it was on YouTube because there was something about how that kratom is new. And anyway, so this drink has kratom in it, and the kids were wanting to drink that and get high. It's now more than just being sold at like smoke shops. It's becoming more easily accessible. Let's talk about what actually kratom is. Kratom is a leafy plant native to Southeast Asia that has found popularity in the United States due to its psychoactive properties. Its leaves can be prepared and consumed as a capsule, tonic, and pressed to tablet. Recently concentrated preparations of opioids that are naturally produced by kratom have become commercially available, prompting concern from medical communities. We still have our guest sitting here, so that leads me to a question for you. Is you said you were mixing it in milk. Did you ever take it any other way, like in the capsule?
That's a really good question. And I did at some point take it in a capsule, but I found that it took longer to get high because you had to wait for the capsule to dissolve. And so I did not do that very often or for very long. I usually took it within milk because that was really the better high. It got into my system a lot quicker.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So, what is an opioid? So, opioids are molecules with diverse shapes and structures that modulate opioid receptors. Our brains and bodies naturally produce opioid peptides, including endocrines, dynorphins. So here's the legal status. Despite long-standing data describing the opioid activity of kratom, it remains widely accessible. FDA policy has consistently banned kratom from human consumption, yet enforcement has been inconsistent with kratom product manufacturers even being official sponsors of some high visibility college sports teams. Well, that's interesting. Problems and treatments. Our guest today, what type of treatment? You said that you did this over the weekend, so I'm assuming that you were at home when you were detoxing.
Yes, yes. I was at home. I spent the weekend detoxing at home. I did not go to a facility, although I do know that some people from the Facebook groups I used to follow actually did have to go to a place for treatment, just like you would if you were addicted to pain meds or things like that. But for me, I just did it at home. I don't know if I quite recommend that, because if you are highly addicted to something, it's probably best to have somebody there with a medical background to watch you as you're going through your withdrawal, because that too can be just as dangerous as the drug itself.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's I had never thought of that, but you're absolutely right. So, problems and treatment. As it contains opioids, kratom has a potential for dependence and addiction. Kratom related fatal overdoses, including polysubstance overdose, as well as naloxone responsive overdoses, are increasingly reported. Fatal opioid overdoses involving kratom increasing from 0.5% for all opioid deaths in 2016 to 2% in 2022. So yeah, let me ask our guest here. So, um, did you ever have any problems with this with respect to the things that article is talking about?
No, I did not have any problem with it. I honestly, when I first started, I thought, oh, this thing is natural. You can't die from it. And I really am a little weary of the idea of somebody dying from it because for me, if I took too much, it would make me throw up. And there were times where I was throwing up because I would just take too much. It just made me nauseous. And I can't imagine somebody getting to the point where they die from it without getting sick prior to that. I can't say from my experience, I did not have any of those issues. I can't say for certain if it's true or not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. People who use kratom regularly are likely to develop dependence. People who are kratom dependent and stop using kratom are likely to experience opioid withdrawal. There is no definitive guideline for the treatment in kratom dependence. Many clinicians manage kratom dependence similarly to the dependence of other opioids using combinations of medication and behavioral interventions. Small studies have shown positive outcomes using medications for opioids, methadone and naltrexone. This was really, really interesting to learn more about kratom, especially since it's such a new drug of choice. It was really great to have you on today, so I want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. And it was really great to be here. I'm very happy that I was able to tell my story, and hopefully people will learn from it.
Absolutely. I think it's great, and I think they will. I know I have, so thank you so much. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about my addiction. So, my addiction is shopping, and I think it very much can mimic the same thing. I think not having been addicted to drugs, I think for me, with drugs, anyways, you get that high. And for me, the drug or the shopping is getting that, the high is opening that package and seeing it. I do still have an addiction to shopping, but I am now shopping within my means. Whereas before, I was shopping outside of my means and I racked up a lot of credit card debt. And that's a lot for me because I typically do not have credit card balances. I will pay my credit card off every month. And with the addiction several years ago when I was kind of in the middle of it, even though I'm still suffering from it now, I would buy my drug of choice, or my thing that I really like to buy, is purses. I love purses because no matter what size I am, a purse always fits. And there's so many cute ones out there that I would be like, okay, I want that one. I want that one. I would get it. And there are so many in my closet right now that have the tags on them. They're not even name brands. I just bought a $30 cheap one on Amazon, but I bought it because it was so dang cute. And that's all that matters to me, is that it's cute. It doesn't have to have a logo or anything on it. That was my drug. My drug of choice, of course, was just shopping. And I did get into some credit card debt, and I am paying off that debt slowly but surely. And I'm trying to now remain within my means. So I still buy stuff. I just buy it within my budget. And I just recently bought a couple of purses. One of them was, like I said, one of them was a $30 purse on Amazon. It was so cute. I watched this girl who is on Facebook, but I found her on YouTube. And she's a personal assistant in New York City. And she shows the things that she shops for her boss. And she recently showed a suede purse that she really liked, and that her boss wanted one similar. And I thought, wow, that's really cute. Now hers was a Prada, and I am not about to go out and spend thousands of dollars on a purse. Would never do that. A couple hundred here and there for sure, but not not thousands of dollars. Because of that, I was like, I really like to have a suede purse. So that's what I found. I found this really cute one on Amazon. I don't care about the name brands. I just care how it looks. It's got to be cute. Another place I go shopping is on Etsy. I love ones on there because I really like supporting the small business that's on there. Another thing that I'm addicted to is jewelry. You should see the amount of jewelry that I have. And I say that the jewelry I have, again, is not expensive. I will buy stuff on sale at Macy's for $10. And, I haven't bought any jewelry for a while, but I did buy on Temu. It doesn't matter what brand it is. I like it just when it's cute, and so I'll buy it. That's my addiction. I also have been addicted to other things. When I was in high school, I was addicted to cigarettes, and I smoked for a really long time. I smoked for 17 years, and I quit in January of 2010. There are times where I don't really have a craving for cigarettes anymore, but there are times where I will walk past somebody that has a cigarette and they have on cologne, and the mixture of cologne and cigarette, it just takes me back. It takes me back to the years where I used to party, go to clubs, and that's back when you could smoke in the club. It was fun. But not anymore. Not interested in smoking. My health is more important to me, to a point. Wouldn't know that now, but when I quit, I was still married. My ex actually was worried that I was going to go back to smoking. But to be honest, I was already a runner by then, and I wanted to be more of a runner than a smoker. So that's what I chose, and that's what I did for the next several years until I had my ankle surgeries. Those are my two addiction things. I do have an addictive personality. I do occasionally drink alcohol. I'm not addicted to it necessarily, but I think there may have been times when I was younger that I could have said I was addicted to it. But now I tend to choose not to drink, because now that I'm older, if I have a glass of wine or hard liquor or whatever type of alcohol I choose, I tend to have a hangover for the next 2-3 days. And it's just not as exciting as it used to be when I was younger, where I could go out and drink and then go to work the next morning at 7 a.m. I can easily not drink. There have been the last several weekends where my work has been really stressful, and I've wanted to have a drink on a Friday, and I've chosen not to, just because I don't want the hangover on Saturday, because I don't want to sleep the entire day away. So I just choose not to drink. And I haven't drank for a long time. The last time I drank was a bottle of wine, and I couldn't tell you when that was. It was probably a couple months ago now. Now let's talk about the top 10 signs of shopping addiction. I'm going to see how many I can check off on that. So the first one here is compulsive spending. Individuals with a shopping addiction will often spend a substantial amount of money or time shopping, buying things that are not necessary or within their means, which, yes, that was me, not anymore. When someone is addicted to shopping, they may experience a sense of euphoria or excitement when they shop. Yes, I love shopping. I don't actually go into places to shop anymore, But I do love online shopping, and it's just as fun, especially when I go through Etsy and I find the different cute things that people are making. I love it. Loss of control. When addicted to shopping, individuals continue to shop even though they know it negatively affects their lives. Yes. Preoccupation with shopping. Individuals addicted to shopping may continue to shop even if they are in debt. Yes, because I kept putting stuff on my credit card and not being able to pay. And then the next thing you know, I've ran up a huge credit card bill and I can't pay it. So that was definitely me. Lying or hiding their purchases. No, I didn't do that. Well, I don't tell my family, but yeah, I guess you could say I do hide it. Okay, shopping as a recreational activity. I wouldn't say I do that. Neglecting responsibilities. Shopping may precede other essential responsibilities such as work and school. No, I couldn't say I do that. And legal issues, I don't have any legal issues with that either. But I forgot to mention that I do have an addiction too to shoes. Up until the time I had ankle surgeries, I had over 100 pairs of shoes. I still love shoes. Again, I don't care about the brand. I just want it to be cute. And when I moved here, I downsized significantly from where I'm at, size of closet and house, really, to where I have. And I have two closets in my room, but they're much smaller than the closet that I had in my previous home. And I had to get rid of a lot of shoes. I think I got rid of about half. And I still have shoes in the bottom of my closet and even some underneath my beds because I've got my own bed and then I've got a guest room that has some under that too. And sadly, I can't wear them. I can't wear the shoes anymore because of my ankle surgeries. Although I did just purchase a pair from Amazon that are really cute, and I need to have something that has a really soft sole to it so if it's comfortable for me to wear because of my ankle surgeries. And so this one looked like it had a soft sole and had even a heel on it, which I haven't been able to wear a heel in forever. I'm really looking forward to being able to put on the shoes because I'm hoping that they fit well. The problem that I have is that with my ankle surgery, so I've had two on my left and one on my right, and the one on my right was due to breaking my leg, ankle, and foot out while I was out hiking a couple of years ago. And it was a nasty, nasty break. I broke both bones in my leg on my right, down by the ankle. And then I also broke some bone, what would be considered the ankle region. And then I broke a couple of bones in my foot to where now I have a bunch of hardware in there keeping it all together. The doctor said I could eventually get it all taken out, but he said if it's not bothering you, then don't bother getting it out. So far, it's still in there and it's not really bothering me. However, if you look at my foot, the top of my foot, you can see that it's a little bit more swollen. I don't know if it's scar tissue or what, but it's just not the same size as my other foot. I don't tie my tennis shoe on my right because of how puffy it is. That's made getting shoes a little bit more difficult because one foot could be considered maybe a half size bigger than the other. And so it's been hard to find shoes to fit because of that. And so I've been wearing tennis shoes a lot. And I hate wearing tennis shoes because number one, they're not cute. And they just don't go with my outfit. I mean, I was trying to wear cute outfits and wearing tennis shoes just doesn't work for me. But I had to. I didn't really have much of a choice. So I was wearing the tennis shoes. And so I bought this new pair and I'm hoping that it works. But I will say too that my top of my foot on my right after the surgery, I don't really have much feeling there either. And when I took this Pilates class the other day and the lady was telling me where to put my foot and everything on the bar, she touched my foot and trying to place it in the right spot. And oh my gosh, it felt so weird to have somebody touch it because I don't have any, like I could feel it, like the pressure, but I don't have any feeling in it. And so it felt really bizarre. And to the point, like a couple years ago when I was moving into this place, I was moving a box spring upstairs because I have two box springs on a queen size bed because that's the only way to get up the stairs. And I was moving it up the stairs and it fell out of the box and then came down on my foot. And I was like, okay, whatever. I saw it, no big deal. And then a couple days later, I don't know where I was. I was actually getting ready to go to the podiatrist because for my ankle. And I noticed that on top of my foot, that not only was it cracked open where the scar used to be, but it was like oozing stuff out of it, which was so gross. But I didn't know it because I couldn't feel it. Oh my gosh, it was so weird. But anyways, thankfully I was going to the podiatrist and she was able to clean it out and put bandage on it and everything. It was crazy. I was going there for another reason too. Anyway, yeah, good times. So my addiction is shopping where I like shoes, purses, and jewelry. All things that I tend to like because no matter what size I am, they always fit. If I were a little bit smaller person, I think for sure I would love shopping for clothes. Okay, so let's talk about some healthy alternatives, which for me is very hard. Not necessarily with the shopping, but it's hard for me to, I guess, maybe swap one addiction to the other. And some healthy alternatives would be journaling. I've heard this from my counselor. She's told me several times to journal. And I did for a while. And that's kind of actually what led to this podcast. Because I was journaling there for a while. And then I started making recordings. And then that led to maybe doing a podcast. And so here we are. This is episode 9. Going for a walk. Yes, that's actually one of the things that I'm trying to do. Talking with somebody that you feel is safe, maybe calling or texting. And then trying to find a way to emotionally regulate, which that's one of the things that I'm working on too with my counselor. Recognizing the emotions that I feel when I'm doing something or that causes anxiety, and then basically recognizing, stating it out loud, and then choosing the opposite. So, for example, getting out of bed. She wants me to think about what it is that I'm thinking about when I decide to stay in bed. And then recognizing that and doing the opposite and getting out of bed. And sometimes it comes down to just flat out being lazy. I just want to stay in bed all day and I don't want to get up. That's part of it. The other part, of course, is the depression. And then the other thing here is when to seek help. And if the behaviors feel uncontrollable, if the anxiety and depression is worsening, then therapy, maybe a support group or medical guidance would be right for you. And for me, I'm actually considering going to Overeaters Anonymous. I just have not. I have several sessions, very much like, I guess, AA. And I've even chosen a class that I want to go to or session on Wednesday afternoons. And I just haven't done it yet. I'm a little nervous. The other thing with medical guidance and therapy, of course, I am in therapy. I've changed the types of medicine I've added to the medication that I'm on. So I'm on one for anxiety, I think another one for anxiety and depression, and then another one for depression. One most recently that I'm on is called Wellbutrin, and it's really one that's supposed to help with elevating your mood and making you feel like you want to be more active. And I'll tell you what, I've only been on it for a couple of weeks, and I do feel it's starting to change me a little bit. I mean, normally I'm in bed by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just sit there and watch things on my phone for a few hours before I go to bed. And I look at that as no different than sitting on the couch and watching TV. But last night I was up till 10 o'clock, not in bed. And I think that's the first time in a really long time that I've done that. It seems to me that the medication is actually working. And something too I just noticed here not too long ago is from December of last year to December of the previous year, so basically from December of 2024 to December of 2025, I ended up going to a cardiologist and I did a monitor for a week and he diagnosed me with something. And then towards the end of 2025, my palpitations became more often and stronger to the point where they were keeping me up sometimes. I went back to the cardiologist and I did another monitor. And I felt like I was pushing that monitor a lot during the time I was wearing it because I was wearing it for a week or more. He diagnosed me with something else, and he said basically I'm diagnosed with both, but they are independent of each other, which I thought was a weird answer. Because of that, I was starting to get worried. Well, I noticed yesterday that I haven't had a heart palpitation in a really, really long time. Probably not since the beginning of this year. And I don't know if it's because my medication has changed or things within my job are different or what. I mean, I'm still having anxiety problems, but I don't know. I think that will do it for today. I hope that you all are doing well and that you've enjoyed this episode. I also want to thank our special guest who came in today. They are anonymous, so I won't be able to thank them by name, but I do want to thank that person for coming in and giving us their story with respect to being addicted to Kratom. And then also, it's not easy to talk about that, so I really appreciate wanting to talk about that. I hope your week is going well, or week will go well, and thank you much for joining us today. This is the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. If today's episode of Real Stories, Real Struggles, and Real Hope resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps others find this space and feel less alone.